Well, we are turning the tables today, where the host, myself, Heather Davies, becomes the guest. Yep, that's right. My special guest, Sarah, who shared her story in our very first episode of the Meniere's Muse podcast back in 2022, returns today to interview me, so I can finally share my story with you and celebrate 1 year of the Meniere's Muse podcast. Yay! Before I continue, I feel I must mention by listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultations with your healthcare professionals. We're here to share stories and give hope. Please consult your own physician for any medication questions or medical issues that you may be having. Our bodies are uniquely ours, and something that may work for one person may not necessarily work for you.
Yeah, we'll turn the tables. Here we are, like coming full circle, right? Like,
Oh, I know.
it was like almost a year ago. Did we hit
Yes,
the mark?
February 9th is, wait, I launched the podcast January 31st, and I'm hoping that's when this airs. But
Okay.
yeah, almost a year, and you were my first guest.
And I'm so excited because like I'm starting to interview again for my podcast, as you know, because I interviewed my husband, and so now I kind of feel like I'm green again and interviewing, but it's just a conversation, pretty much, right?
Absolutely, that's it. just a regular conversation.
And also too, like I've never heard your story from start to finish. So this is, I think, for me, and then obviously for the listeners, everyone's going to be really excited to really take a deep dive into Heather and listen to your deep dive.
Yeah,
into your.
I've only told it a couple times verbally, and it seems like I get real emotional when it's getting easier whenever I talk about it, because I've written it many times, but so I am warning ahead of time that I do get tearful. So, but
Well,
I guess
therapeutic. Yeah, that's why like the podcast is so cathartic, right? Like it's a way to kind of work through this condition that we have, this chronic illness, and coming to acceptance. And I think it's important to emote when we need to emote about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then this podcast serves as such a wonderful opportunity for people to feel connected and feel like they're part of a community of people who understand and not feel so alone.
Sure.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you for doing this.
No problem. And I know that I know we were trying to figure out where we met. I know it was social media. There's no other way that we could have met. And I'm so thankful that I found you. And I think our first conversation was like 2 hours long as I sat on the deck of the boat, and we just sat and talked and talked and talked. And you planted those seeds for me. You planted those seeds back then. I don't know if you know that, for the podcast that is now my podcast, Meniere's Muse, but because of your podcast and your inspiration. So thank you, because it's been a great ride.
Oh my gosh, it's been amazing. Like I think our relationship has been a divine relationship. It's divinely made. And what was it? I'm getting brain fog.
It's okay.
Oh, yes. I was telling somebody else this. You are the first person in all the decades that I've had, I've had this condition. You're the first person that I've really developed a friendship with, that I really like beyond just our compatibility with Meniere's. I just think you're such an amazing, kind and loving and just very deeply authentic person. I didn't know you before Meniere's. I don't know how much you've changed. So I would love to hear what your life was like before you got Meniere's, and then what happened.
Yeah. So
Okay, so my story. Well, before I started having symptoms, my symptoms began in 2016. I was working as a nurse in behavioral health and addictions. Um, I left my job after 18 years, but I'd been there since the early 2000s, and I loved it. And at the time, I had taken a couple different positions throughout, and the most recent was where I visited the chronically mentally ill in the community and would make sure they're taking their meds and living, you know, the best they can. And then also being a mentor of some sort so they can live their best life in the community. Because at that time they had shut down state hospitals. So a lot of our chronically mentally ill were in the communities. So we thought of ourselves as like a hospital without walls, and we would give them their injections, their medications, and it just became part of their family. And I had my own caseload. And then I decided to go back to school because I'm an LPN and I wanted to transfer over, do the bridge program to RN. And I've always wanted to do that. So I started taking 5 classes, just dove into it on top of working 40 plus hours a week. And I also ran a fitness club at work 3 to 4 nights a week. And then, of course, my home life, taking care of the kids and stuff and my husband. So I had a very heavy load, but I was so used to it. I was just buzzing through life. You know how we do it. The busier we are, the busier we want to be. And I thought I had a great life. I just filled it. I like to say I had no white space because I look at my calendars back then and I had no white space. Everything was filled to the minute. And I was sleeping maybe 3 to 5 hours a night, and that's probably being generous. Yeah, my body was extremely taxed, and it caught up to me. And I thought I was sat down one night and I was studying for one of my classes, and I started getting this numbness and tingling on the top of my head, and it traveled down to my face. And I didn't think anything of it. Being a nurse, I should have should have thought a lot of it, but I'm like, that's stress. I'm just reading, I'm overdoing it. I'm just going to push through this class and I'm going to bed. So it happened for a couple weeks, and I finally called my mother. No other symptoms. I called my mother, who is a retired cardiac nurse, and she's like, "You need to go get this checked out." I'm like, "Nah, if it happens again, I'll go." So it happened the next day, and I called her, and she came to pick me up so my husband could watch the kids, and he's not good at hospitals anyway. So she took me to the ER, and my blood pressure was sky high, so they immediately called the stroke team, and of course that was not what was going on. Then they sent me for 2 scans, MRI and a CT, and I knew that wasn't right. After I did the first scan, and they sent me back for an immediate another scan. I'm like, what's going on, Mom? Because we knew something wasn't right. And they came back, and the doctor sat down across from me and said, "You have a brain tumor." And I said, "I'm sorry, what?" Yep, I have what they call a meningioma. It's still here. It's very small. It's an insignificant finding. It's not causing any symptoms, but it could very well have been the culprit of all my vestibular symptoms, but it wasn't. And I left there without an answer. And of course, my anxiety's sky high. And um, so I started hitting the pavement trying to figure out what to do with this. And then all my symptoms started increasing and showing their faces. My tinnitus kicked in, vertigo started and didn't stop for 6 months. It was every day for 6 months, whether it was just a couple hours or 4 to 6 hours. It was just every day. And
Now, were you having, sorry to interrupt, were you having
no,
attacks? Okay.
yes,
It
I was
just
having,
had like
no,
vertigo.
they weren't, they were floor hugging. It was floor hugging vertigo where the only comfortable place I had was laying down on the floor. And I was just it just felt like I was in a perpetual fall through nothingness, like I was
Okay.
never ending.
Was your
And
head really heavy?
I had a lot of pressure. I
Yeah.
only thing I remember being heavy were my legs. My legs felt like I was carrying concrete in my pants, that my legs had no strength, but they were heavy. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So my daughter was only 3 at the time. So I stopped picking her up. Um, I was an emotional mess. I just went down quickly. When the other symptoms started, I withdrew from school, took a leave of absence from work. I just stopped. My whole life just stopped. And it was just filled with doctor's appointments after doctor appointments. My primary care physician was pretty awesome. He was determined to figure out what was going on with me and sent me to numerous doctors that he wasn't comfortable with with what they were giving back to him, the diagnosis. And some of them just didn't know what was going on. They said it was anxiety. They said, oh, it'll just go away. I did have a history of migraines, and I had a history of vertigo. I would have vertigo daily, maybe once every year for the past 10, 12 years. But it was just one day in every year. It was nothing like I experienced.
Yeah.
So we just kept digging, and the doctor finally got tired of sending me to all these referrals. And he goes, I'm going to send you to Mayo Clinic. And they have what they call a multidisciplinary clinic, where I see multiple different specialties, and then they come together and they get together and figure out what's going on with me. And that's when I was diagnosed with Meniere's disease, vestibular migraine, autosclerosis, and well, I guess the meningioma. And they kept doing the scans on the meningioma. It's nothing. It hasn't grown. It hasn't done anything. It's teeny tiny. It's just sitting there. And they say most people have them their entire adult lives. So thank goodness it hasn't grown. But that's that. So
What is it? Can you explain the third thing you were diagnosed with? Because I've never heard of that.
autosclerosis, which is an abnormal bone in your middle ear.
How do they determine that?
I don't know. Some of the testing I did all the vestibular testing. Actually ended up doing it 3 times because each doctor wanted to do their own testing. The caloric testing, the everything, all that vestibular loveliness. So one of the tests that they did to find that, and actually I think it was an MRI, because I had so many MRIs back then, and that's one of the findings was the autosclerosis. Yeah, actually, and now that I mentioned the hearing loss, back when I was having all these symptoms, and they said Meniere's, I said Meniere's disease. But you have to have hearing loss with Meniere's disease. I don't notice any hearing loss. I didn't notice hearing loss, but the audiologist report showed hearing loss. So that was that.
So that when that all came down,
Mhm.
what was that like for you?
It was terrible. I didn't know how to be this person, and to have everything that I was doing in life, just from busy, busy, busy to just bam, a dead stop. I didn't know how to be this person. It was awful. When I say I stopped doing everything. I stopped living. I just most of my early days were just crying and laying in bed and just trying to just breathing pretty much. And that was like that for a while until my husband had to return to work, and then I had to take care of Lila. And like I said, she was 3, and I remember her having vertigo and laying down on the floor, and it's just her and I there, and her, thank goodness, she was a wonderful child and played by herself, just snuggled up next to me with her toys. And other times I've had to put her, when she's more rambunctious, put her in the tub, or guide her into the tub whenever I felt something coming on, so she could play with her toys in there, in a safe spot, while I could lay on the floor until it passed. It was awful. I didn't recognize my body at all. It got to a point where I just hid in my room. John would get up in the morning, go take care of the kids, and I would just stay in the dark and not even turn the TV on. I couldn't stand noises, music, just the white noise of the TV. I didn't want any of it. I just wanted quiet. And I sat there for a while. Yep. I took the meds that they told me to take because I thought that, okay, I'm going to do what they tell me to do. And nothing worked back then for me, but I wasn't in a good headspace.
Yeah.
So
when did you go ahead? Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, no, I'm sorry you were in that place, but I feel like that we all of us that do get diagnosed, we do have that period of mourning, of depression, of just deep, deep sadness that we've lost something.
Right.
Like what it is, it's like hard to like really discern. Like it's like you've lost your way of life, and it's no fun way to lose, because you're just constantly uncomfortable, especially in the beginning when the symptoms are so brand new. I know you said that you were sensitive to touch. Was that something that would that bring on like ear symptoms, like inner ear symptoms when you would touch your cheek or your like?
No, I'll tell you, with my head, it was numbness and tingling down my head and my face. Um, I know now that that for me is a sign that whatever I'm doing, I need to stop. Like my stress is getting too high. I think that is my vestibular migraine, not so much a painful migraine, but it's a warning sign. If I don't stop doing whatever I'm doing at that moment, um, it intensifies and symptoms do come on. I have the fluctuating hearing loss, like the whom, that I don't even know how to explain it. And the tinnitus will kick in if I'm stressed. Now happy stress and bad stress. So it goes both ways. So I have to kind of keep that even keel. But after I did, I don't even know when I started having some improvement. The medication was lessening the vertigo. So I spoke to my boss, I think it was like 3 or 4 months in, and I tried going back to work. And I tried, and I couldn't drive. So someone escorted me to my clients' homes, but I didn't trust myself anymore. I was, my brain fog was so bad. I feared that I was going to harm my patient by medicating them incorrectly. So I second guessed, triple guessed everything, so much so that I made myself crazy. And I'm like, I can't do that. I just can't do it. It's just not worth it. So I had a long talk with my husband and my boss, and they were so wonderful. They tried their best to work with me, put me in the office so I didn't have to go out. But it's still, as a nurse, you need to have that confidence, and I lost it just in a matter of months. So I stepped away from nursing, and yeah, sucked.
That does suck. I'm so sorry. And then, but you stepped away from nursing. Oh.
I told you I cry.
I know. What, after you said 3 or 4 months, you went back to work, gave it a shot.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that? Did you just kind of go on a sabbatical of work for a period of time, or?
I did. I didn't know what the future held, so I applied for disability. I mean, I have to, there's so many little side stories to Meniere's that I just got to get it together. Hold on.
Okay. Oh.
Hey, baby. Will you get me a tissue? Thank you. You're fine. So, when you can't even, oh, I thought she's going to come out first. When you can't even shower,
Yeah.
without tilting your head back and closing your eyes. I mean, my showers went to me putting a towel on the shower floor and sitting on that and just letting the water run over me. And I remember those days, and I used to sit there and cry. So as my husband and children didn't see me, that was my place in the shower. Now obviously I cry openly. Oh my goodness, my eyes. But all those things that came to surface, all those little things that you can't you couldn't do anymore. I couldn't walk down the stairs. We lived in a stilt house. I couldn't walk down the stairs without sitting and scooching my butt down the stairs. One day I did try walking down, and right before I got to the end, 3 or 4 steps up, thank goodness I wasn't holding Lila, I fell down the stairs. Hey, baby, you can say hi.
Hi, Lila.
That's
It's
it.
good to see you.
So, yeah, and then
So
the
you
cottage,
fell down. Wait, you fell down. You fell down the stairs?
I fell down. It was only 3 feet up, three steps up, thank goodness, and I landed in our little landscaping patch. I twisted my ankle, but that's it. That was when I was trying to start walking down the stairs again, and yeah, I couldn't. I couldn't do it. My vestibular system was just a wreck. And walking in the dark was a joke. It still is today. I don't know about if you have that problem. Can you walk in the
Yeah.
dark?
Yeah, I'm like holding everything.
Yeah.
To touch it.
If I find something pinpoint, like I don't have these, but like, like those old alarm clocks, like the little light on. If I focus on one light, I can walk in the dark. But if it's dark now, just those little things,
You can.
Thank you. Thank you, sweetie.
Okay, sweetheart.
I know she's a doll. But yeah, so I mean, I know that there's so many different little stories that just really mess with your self-confidence. And so I was not me anymore, and I just shut myself down. I didn't know what light ahead for me. I remember at one point, make sure she's okay, laying in bed and just hoping I didn't wake up the next day, or things along those lines. I think a lot of us do that. But yeah, I love life, but not the way I was living. So, yeah, sucks.
It does suck. And I remember being in that place of like, and I think that's like so important for anyone who's listening or watching or trying to understand about Meniere's disease, is that especially like people like spouses and close friends and family members, that like it is so excruciatingly uncomfortable physically, but then we have to deal with the emotional component of it. I don't know which is worse, because the emotional component is just, it's like complete devastation beyond comprehension. Like, what just happened? What? That forever? There's no cure? What?
Yep.
Nobody can see what's happening to me. So do people believe me?
Oh,
And
exactly. That was awful, because I started to question myself. I'm like, am I making this up? Especially after you see a couple doctors and they act like they don't believe what's going on. Yeah. So,
but I think it's so important. Like you're vulnerable today. I think, for people to see that after all these years, you can still get vulnerable about it, because it is such a huge loss, and going back to that time and sharing about it. Like, I know that when I'm symptomatic, when I feel the most uncomfortable, I tend to get vulnerable. Like, fortunately today, I'm not, I probably look like this normal person without Meniere's disease.
and I normally do too.
Well, if I was interviewing you, no way. That's why I couldn't interview you a couple weeks ago, because I couldn't even like handle the sound of my voice. I had to whisper, and like these are little things that I'd tell my husband, like, can you whisper, because your voice is really hurting my ears.
Right.
Like, and so I think, and then once you get over the hump, that you start, it's like you want to do so much. You want to, take a deep dive and work really hard in your podcast and do what you can do now with this new life that you've created first, that you fought your way to. I want to hug you.
Oh, hug you.
So, okay. So when did things start to turn around for you, Heather? Like turn around in terms of like, okay, this is my new life. Like this is what I have to learn to live with. And what was your mental state like after, like when did things start to change?
Well, it didn't change for a while, until a friend visited me, which I'm sure you know, you don't get that many visits from friends when this happens. People don't understand and they kind of disappear from your life. And but this friend visited me, and I was in the darkness of my room like I normally was by myself, with the TV off, the blinds pulled and everything. And we had a nice conversation. And when she got up to leave, she opened the door and turned around and looked at me and said, Heather, guess you're gonna have to dream another dream.
Mm.
And then she left, and we didn't say anything else that day. And when she closed that door, something switched in me. I first felt like I had been punched in the stomach, because I had never, the entire time I was ill, I never thought about our dreams. I mean, I was focused on me, and we tend to be that way because we don't understand what's going on. I wasn't thinking outside myself at all, you know. I just wanted to know what was going on with me. So when she left that day, I cried. I was, well, something switched. And I woke up the next day and was like, okay, if I can't do anything about this, if I can't cure this, then I had to figure out how to live with this. And I have to get my butt out of this bed. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what that looks like. And I had to learn to trust myself again. I had to figure out how to love me the way I was, and in a sense, more in my previous life. I didn't know how to be the Heather that was not a nurse. I didn't know how to be that outgoing Heather, you know, the impulsive, adrenaline junkie Heather. I didn't know that person anymore. But I had to figure it out. I rem I remember saying, I'm here, I'm still alive, so I've got to figure out what my purpose is. I don't know, still working on that, but but it's
You're doing a great job.
I had to reinvent myself.
Yeah.
I This Heather is not anything like the previous Heather. So I just well, I say that, but there is a lot of me in there, but it's just different, you know. Um so I just started reading and absorbing and trying to make changes physically, spiritually, I mean everything, nutritional. Um I started the Heal Your Headache diet, try to find my triggers. I know some people don't believe in that, but for me, I have numerous triggers and nutritional triggers. Um, so I jumped into, I just started reading everything. That one of the first books I read was Gabby Bernstein, The Universe Has Your Back. Um, so I started stepping towards meditation and yoga after that book. And then the Heal Your Headache book. And it didn't happen overnight. And the journaling, the symptom journaling, and my personal journaling was something that became part of my day-to-day routine, just like brushing my teeth. And I still had symptoms, but as I progressed and as I was pouring into myself and trying to fix myself, things started to lessen and improve, you know. So yeah, it's hard journey.
Yeah. And you had to do it in the middle of, child rearing. So, I
Yeah,
mean, that must have been really, really difficult.
it's tough. I know that I have an amazing support system. My husband's great, and he was really good. He did have to return to work, and I had to figure out that. But my family stepped up, um, and we just started working it out. I think the biggest thing when my friend left that day, when she told me I'd have to dream another dream, I never thought of us stepping into our dreams of selling our home and buying a sailboat and traveling. It's just never occurred to me because we had dreamed so hard and learned so much and really fed into that dream that it just was just going to happen. It's just a matter of time, and the kids got older. And something though with the illness, because with the vestibular symptoms, propelled us forward though to get myself better and to jump into our dream earlier. So crazy.
And what is that dream?
Crack.
Oh.
Well, we planned on after the boys graduated to sell our house and buy a boat and live on a boat and sail away. And then we were surprised with our little blessing, Lila. Um, so so we decided not to wait another 18 years while she, went to school and we waited for her to graduate. We decided to raise her, go ahead and sell our home and buy a boat. And we've been homeschooling her. And right now we're in an RV and traveling. While we're recording this, I'm in Florida. So, and that's where we're from. But so we're visiting friends and family right now. But so we did it, but it took a lot of time. I mean, I'm 6 years since my symptoms and been a lot of work. I've sat in my shadows a long time and tried to figure out what I need to do to move forward, and I'm still working on that every day. It's never going to go away. It's going to be an ongoing process forever. I think you and I've talked about that it's not just something that, okay, I'm fixed or I can deal with these symptoms, keep a minimum. No, I need to continue working on myself every day to keep them at bay and yeah.
And I remember you told me once that somebody was confused by how you were more comfortable living on a boat, like you had
Yeah.
less vertigo.
Yeah,
Is
it's crazy. Yeah, before my husband and I did this, because we thought, how am I going to live? I have vertigo. How am I going to live on a sailboat?
Yeah.
So my husband and I went in and talked to my doctor at the time, and we mentioned it, and he didn't even bat an eye. He goes, do it. Do it. You may be better on the water. And I'm like, okay, that's all we need to hear. Let's do it. So we set a date and we said, okay, we're going to sell the house and we're just going to do it. If I can't live on it, we'll give it 6 months. If I can't live on the boat, then we'll sell it and we'll come back to land. And my husband's always been supportive. He's always said, if we can't do this, of course, we don't have to. We'll figure out something else. And but we did. We sold our home in 2018. I think the end of 2017 into 2018, and we researched sailboats, and we finally found one in Virginia, and we sold 90% of our belongings and moved on to her. And it was amazing. I mean, it was hard at first getting rid of all the stuff, but now it's nothing. Now it's like, wow. I see people buying stuff for their stuff and it's like, I don't miss that. I don't miss it at all.
Yeah, you were like a minimalist.
Yeah, absolutely. We figured out quickly, and yeah, but it's not, I mean, it hasn't always been, like I tell people, it hasn't always been sunsets and rum runners. It's a lot of sweat and it's a lot of work and it's small house living and you never know where you're going to be, and that's okay. I mean, we like that. It's what works for us, and it's had its challenges, but living on land has its challenges too. And it's so crazy because the couple years that we were out on the water, we met 2 other people with Meniere's. One of them on a boat, he is fine, but once he steps off the boat, he has to use a cane to walk. So I know it's insane. I'm not saying all people are like that, but it's cool. It's great to be able to live this life and do what we want to do, and yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you kind of an obvious question. The answer might be very obvious, but how, since you've made this huge lifestyle change, because of the effects of the symptoms on your old life.
Mm-hmm.
How has that impacted your symptoms today? Like, have they changed? Have they been changing? Do you think they would have changed regardless of any lifestyle changes? Or do you think moving onto a boat has helped or not helped?
It's a great question. I really think, just like I had to do a complete overhaul in everything in my life, I had to do that to move on to a boat as well. And, but I think it has given me so much peace and freedom. And that's what I was missing from my previous life. I was so caught up in what everybody else, their judgment of me and the approval of other people, that I forgot who I was. And that's one thing that Vestibular Migraines and Meniere's has done for me. It has allowed me the permission to say no. And it has taught me to be able to say no without regret, and to really do me and what's up for our family. It doesn't matter if people don't get it. This is my life. This is our life. And yeah. So I don't know if I answered that question, but no, the symptoms are better, and they're less. But I have symptoms every day, but to me they're better because I'm a different person. I'm less reactive than I was before, and try to find more joyful. And I see things where before I was running past them and never noticing. And that might have to do with a 9-year-old I live with, but but, but no, I take that time now, and it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what everybody thinks I should be doing.
Yeah.
No.
It takes a lot of energy, a lot of mental and emotional energy to be thinking about what other people might be thinking about our own life decisions based on chronic illness, or for just because it's our own decision,
Right.
for our convictions and our values and whatnot. But it's
Yeah.
I see your life is so admirable. I think it's like the hugest form of self-care.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to think about my experience living with Meniere's. It's a totally different story, and it happened a totally different time period of my life. And I think about like how when it happened for you, you already had a career, you had, 2 children, and like a very robust life, and it happened smack dab in the middle of all of that. And I wasn't at a place like that. My life was, just kind of beginning. I think like your most recent guest who was diagnosed at 18.
Right.
And I was 21. And so my life was beginning. And so but there's still loss, right? But you lost what your life was like before, but then what I see you're doing now, what you've done with your life is so reflective of how you have this inner, what I see in you is this deep love of living and this willingness to do whatever it takes to live comfortably with this condition. And I think that's why we connect so much, because I have that. I always had, after I got over being really pissed and angry,
Right.
acting out, being very, not doing the exact opposite of what the doctor said, but wanting to have a life.
Yeah.
And I think with Meniere's, it can be really hard. It is very hard to kind of fight for your life, fight for how you want to live with this condition,
Right.
and then accepting how it's not always going to look like you want it to look like on any given day. So kind of at the mercy of our condition at times, depending on how severe the symptoms are. But that you were just the fact that you're, I know this, I'm talking way too much. This is your.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I just have so much admiration for how the wherewithal you had, the change. Like I didn't know, like I said before, I didn't know you before you had it. I just think you're just such a gentle soul that really accepted, okay, this is part of my life. I need to, it's almost like you were connected to your truest, most authentic self. Like, you know, I'm saying that because you said that you were the kind of the keeping up with the Joneses type.
I was. Yeah, I totally was. Absolutely. And I don't miss that at all. I look back and it's like, I missed out on so much of life. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had a very full life, but I was running through it and I wasn't really absorbing it and loving it like I do now. Um, or seeing it as much as I do it now, if that makes any sense. Um, yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, taking a deep look into yourself when all this is going on and sitting in your shadows and finding your own way through all that, through your symptoms, and the pain and the discomfort of it all. It just, it makes you realize how quickly it can be taken away.
Yeah.
So it just makes you see life a little bit different and okay, a lot different. And, and we're not planners anymore. I used to be a planner for everything. And I mean, the only thing I plan these days is literally my interviews for the podcast. Other than that, we are just fly by your pants kind of people. I mean, we got up this morning. Usually we have Lila's schoolwork comes right away, and we're like, wow, the sun's out. No, but we're going to the beach this morning. Your schoolwork can wait or whatever. But she's like, no, 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 I want to do my schoolwork beforehand just so she doesn't have to deal with it when we come back. I'm like, okay. So it's like that, you know, and we just go. And and it's just, I mean, life's not always easy because neither of us work because my husband has some medical issues, and I work when I need to. And that's one reason we come to Florida is because I can work as a travel nurse for 3 to 4 months, and that suffice. That money will carry us through the year, and it's not like before where it didn't matter what was in the bank. We just kept on buying more stuff, and you know, we needed the new car, we needed the new sofa, we needed a paint job. You know, just that stuff doesn't even matter to us anymore. And that's fine if it does for some people because that's fine. That's your life. This is we're talking about me. So, um, yeah. Well, I'm still trying to figure out this new person, and a lot of it is trusting myself more than I ever trusted myself in the past. It's a journey. It's a lot of mirror work. So, yeah.
Well, from where I stand, I think you're doing wonderfully.
Thank you.
I get obviously how difficult it is the first 6 years. I mean, I can barely remember the first 6 years, but I remember doing a lot of crying and a lot of just trying to pretend that it was hard it was really,
Yeah.
really hard.
The shame
And
and guilt that comes with this disease is just,
yeah,
it's hard to get through. And sometimes we backpedal. Was that
Mhm.
you I was talking to about survivor's guilt? Was that you?
I think we
No,
were
imposter
maybe we were talking about like how we were like, did we do something
in the past.
in the to have us get this? And was it like trying to I don't know if we were if
I don't
both
know.
of our brain fogs are activating.
So funny. I know.
So,
I'm not sure. I thought it was I spoke with someone the other day about imposter syndrome, and because you know, you can get that for so many different reasons. And for so long, when I started improving, I did not post in the groups. I didn't say anything because I felt, because I was healing and so many people were not, that maybe I wasn't as sick as I thought I was. So I felt like I had imposter syndrome. Like I can't tell people that I'm healing because maybe I wasn't as sick as they are. But I'm like, wait a minute, just because I'm healing doesn't mean I wasn't sick. I mean, I, I still have symptoms. So, um, yeah, so that's those stories we tell ourselves in our heads are so real, and we really have to rethink those stories and give yourself some grace. And
Yeah.
I think people tend to get stuck on the stories that they're telling themselves, that they focus so much on the symptoms instead of where they want to be. And I think that's a big thing. I think that's why that was a shift for me, was because I had to step out of myself, um, or I was going to have to dream another dream. So instead of focusing on what was going on in my life, I focused on where I wanted to be, on those dreams that I built with my family. And that's what propelled me. And so I just kept focusing on that. And I think that people need to focus on where they want to be as far as their symptoms too, whether that's, decreasing their tinnitus, or their vertigo attacks, or whatever the case may be. And trusting yourself. I wanted a doctor to fix me.
Mhm.
From point, I mean, most of us want a magic pill. And so I took the pills and I listened to them because they knew better, until I knew that I was feeling better. And I want to tell the story because I trusted my doctor. I referred a lot of people to my doctor, and I still refer back to his book because it's amazing. But when I went in one day, because I wanted to come off the medication, because I had made so many changes in my life that I felt I wanted to try to come off the diuretics and the antidepressants and everything. I wanted to try to come off because everything had changed in my life except that. And if I couldn't do it, I wouldn't. I would come back on. But I wanted to taper off. And when I went in to talk to him, he laughed at me and said, "We're not doing that." And I'm thinking in my head, we're not doing that because you need to have a team, but he's telling me that we're not doing that. Instead, he increased my medication. My husband wasn't there with me at that doctor's appointment. I went out that day. I didn't say two more words to my doctor. I sat in my car and I cried. And then I said, okay, quit crying. You're going to go home and you're going to talk to John and we're going to come up with a plan. So I came home, spoke with my husband, and we said, okay, I know I feel great right now. Even the meds might be the why. And please no one do this without consulting with your physician. But I knew I was ready. And so I slowly tapered off my medication over a couple months. And I've been off it ever since. But I knew I was ready because I made all the other changes in my life.
Mhm.
So, if you have a doctor that you trust, oh my God, hang on to them. I thought I had found him. I'm still doctorless, but I'm doing well, so I won't worry about trying to find another one until I need to. Knock on wood. Knock on wood.
Yeah. I'm
But
doctorless too. So
are you really? Yeah, it's
yeah,
hard.
I've been for a very long time. Yeah. Very long time. Well, so let's talk about the fun stuff that you've been
Yeah,
doing
the fun stuff.
as of this past year. Well, do the listeners know about how long you were thinking about starting this podcast
No,
before it actually came to fruition?
no, no. I don't even remember that time, but it's been a while since our first just talk,
Yeah.
and I think that was, gosh, oh my gosh, what's it been, 2 or 3 years?
At least 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know what? I just said, you know how people make their little resolutions, like what my word for the year is or whatever. And I'm like, I'm gonna start
Mm.
this podcast by February 1st of last year. And I started it January 31st of last year. And I loved every moment of it. Every guest has been amazing, and I've learned something from every single one. And it's like I have my own little vestibular family because that's what it is, you know? We're all vestibular sisters and brothers and some amazing warriors out there.
you've created, this is a part of your new dream that you've created.
Love it. I love it. I've got some people that were going to come on next year too, and hopefully I revisit all the other guests that we had this previous year. And I just yeah, I invite people that have these stories to reach out to me because I just love it. We need to hear it. I mean, Instagram is full of all kinds of resources now, which you and I didn't have at the beginning. We didn't have those warriors and those stories and all the advocacy that's out there now. And yeah, it's awesome. It's so awesome. We need to have like a retreat or something, but we can't all be well on the same day. So the same week.
Well, maybe we can have a Zoom, start out with maybe a Zoom retreat or something.
That's true. It would be a lot of fun.
Get to know everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or start small, like little, like depending on how much we can all handle, you know, because that would be, I would love that. I would love to meet everyone that's been on your podcast.
Great.
Because yeah, and I think I told you before, I think the people, like there's people who really, it's just so hard. Having this is so hard that you do kind of curl up in a ball and
you do
and live a really well, and people who have symptoms that are far worse than ours, that are, it's just they have no choice.
Right.
And fortunately, like you and I, we have choices, even though we do still, like we still have Meniere's disease.
Yeah.
We have choices. And I mean, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. We do that. That's another thing, Sarah. You know what? We all do have choices, and I know that one that one of my best friends taught me is that when I do get down on myself, like I was explaining yesterday that I was really in a funk, she says if it's all mental and you can handle the physical, set a time, whether it's 30 minutes, an hour, or a day. All right, you can feel like crap today, but tomorrow you need to get up and do something that's going to make yourself feel better and just get out of that funk. Because I find that so many people get stuck and they're just in that stuck of why me, that they can't look past it. And I get it. Symptoms vary from person to person. Yeah. But man, that mental game is big. It is big.
I agree with you, Heather. I think that's such a great suggestion. And one thing that, you know, if we're like, even people who are bedridden, and I had a day last week where I was in bed, like I could have gotten up, but I just was so tired. And you know how sometimes your limbs just feel so weak and you're just like, it can't explain it. So I was in bed. I didn't fight it. But at some point I was like, you know, you start to feel kind of sad.
Yeah.
You're sad. And you start to think those thoughts like,
yep.
how like it's like I'm feeling a little bit sorry for myself here. Like, how am I useful in this world? I'm just like this laying prone on my bed. But this is where I'm grateful for technology, where you can flip up the laptop. I go on Reddit now, and there's a subreddit for Meniere's disease, and you can go and connect with people who have Meniere's disease. And as soon as I start helping other people with Meniere's disease, I start to mentally improve.
Right.
And it's just, I think the only thing for me that helps when I'm feeling symptomatic, when I'm feeling, I find any way possible where I can help somebody else, you know, and get out of my own head. And what you're doing is a huge example of you do it all the time. And I know how you feel amazing because you're interviewing people all the time, and you've created this amazing podcast in just 1 year, and things are moving forward. Like, I don't know, spoiler alerts here, but you know, like just all this wonderful, all these dreams are new dreams are occurring for you. And really, I'm just so happy for you. And
Thank you. I love that you said that because, I think that when you do pour into other people, Sarah, and you know this with your podcast, it not only gives you purpose, but it really helps all that negative self-talk,
yeah,
puts it on the back burner and actually just, out of the car completely. I mean, my life is messy, but I like it that way. And, um, and I do have symptoms daily. And yeah, my tears do come easily, but that's always been me. It's not just now. It's just I allow myself to feel them and
yeah,
when they come. And my symptoms, I surrender to those like you do when you have to, because I found that when I fought it, I got stuck longer,
mhm.
you know, and they amp up. So I love it. I think what you said that I think, yeah, if you're having bad days and you're starting to all that negative self-talk, if there's anyone else you can pour into or lean on and um or just reach out to one of us and just we'll we'll support you. It's just,
Yeah,
your vestibular family's there for you. They have bad days, they'll lean on you. And that's what I try to enforce. People are afraid to reach out to certain people, but that's why we build this community. We don't want anybody to feel alone. I'm gonna have to check out Reddit. I haven't done that yet.
yeah. I obviously I started using it more for Alcoholics Anonymous. And
Right.
so like I can easily just like every morning I wake up and I'm of service to somebody. Like there's always somebody on there. I'm on day one again, and
Right.
I can share. And then I'm like, I close my laptop and I'm like, oh, it's like having my well, it's different than having my coffee, but it's like
Right.
I'm
No,
like ready for the day. I've
it's like
not
you've
that
done
I'm
your devotions.
yeah, like it's like I love doing that. Like, and
Yeah,
that's why I love doing the podcast because we get to talk, it's so uplifting, to
it
hear
is.
stories about and yours is similar because like we're listening to stories of people who've overcome we're I don't know if overcome is the word, but yes, we've
It
overcome
is.
like the initial grief stricken, like angry, whatever, all those deep emotions that we all experience when we're first diagnosed. And it doesn't matter how long it takes us to get out of that, but
Right.
the of us that kind of get over that hump, and then we're like, okay, so this is my new life. I'm going to fight for to live a life that
Yeah.
isn't what I thought it would look like.
Nope.
But
That's okay.
yeah. And so when you bring together a group of people who have that same mentality, like the people on your podcast, it's like, I want like there to be like a weekly like Zoom like get together with all of your podcast people because to me I feel like they've got similar mentalities that through thick and thin, we know we're gonna have symptoms, we're gonna have shitty days,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
And
but we know there's
it's
gonna be next day it could be better.
yeah, and
It
Sarah,
probably
it's
will.
not,
Yeah.
yes, and I think I don't think a lot of these people were like this prior to these disorders. I think that these have pushed them to better themselves and to figure it out. And in that has a lot of this self-healing, um,
Yeah.
mentally and and emotionally. And that's one of the things I love. I love them. And I can't say love it because I hate and despise my vestibular disorders, but in a crazy way, they have planted all these seeds that of self-healing, and it's fantastic because they allow you to move and reinvent yourself. So and that's what it is. It's you have to hit rock bottom before you can build yourself back up to something new, you know.
The way I experienced your story, how I kind of see it as like a kind of coming home to who you are. And unfortunately, you had to go through it and continue to go through it
Yeah.
kind of uncomfortably
Yeah,
for,
for
of
sure.
course it's, different every day, but it's like you've arrived back to who you are, and stripped away 90% of all of your
I know the
feelings
stuff,
to
the
get there.
weight.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So in closing, like what do you usually do for closing these
I do
days?
those silly questions.
Okay, do you want me to ask you a silly question? Ready?
Yep.
Okay, Heather. Now we're going to ask you questions here. What has living with a vestibular disorder taught you?
Living with a vestibular disorder has taught me patience with myself. That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So before we go, I wanted to end with something a little fun. So I have a few whirlwind questions for you. When you're ready, fill in the blank. Vestibular disorders are
Transformative.
you feel your symptoms coming on and you are trying to be brave. What is the first thing you do?
Take a deep breath. Yeah. I try to ground myself and take a deep breath.
One thing people usually get wrong about you.
That I don't have symptoms. I get that a lot. Well, how can you do this if you're, yeah. You know that drill. But yeah, that I'm symptom free, which is so far from true. Because I smile doesn't mean I'm symptom free.
Yeah.
Sometimes you smile and like, get through this day.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your favorite meal?
Oh, my favorite meal, anything Mexican. And now that I'm plant-based, it's been a challenge, especially when going out to eat, but more restaurants are, leaning more towards the vegetarian type. So yeah, it's a challenge going out to eat, but I love it. To me, a challenge. The Mexican.
Does that have a lot of sodium in it though?
It depends. Yeah. That's why if we do go out to Mexican, I got to be very cautious. But I've been really good lately because I'll just eat the very bland meals during the day, like we know we're going out to dinner, and then at night, I mean, I'll even sometimes have a margarita, and that with the sugar and salt can sometimes send me over. So I have to be really real careful. Depends on how the day is gone prior to that. So yeah, sodium's not my friend.
Got it. Okay. So last show you binged in love.
I binged and loved. Last show I binged and loved. I ask this all the time in my interviews. You would think I would know it. Oh my gosh. Dead to Me. I guess that's the one that comes to mind. Have you seen
Oh,
it?
is that with no, I think is that the one with Christine Applegate?
Yes, Christine Applegate. Yeah.
She's so funny.
It's
She's good.
quirky. It's cute. It's different twist to it.
Okay. I started watching it, but since you liked it, I'll probably try. I'll give it another shot.
Yeah, it's one of those that I turned it off the first time. I'm like, oh, this is kind of, but it's quirky and silly, but it's got its Good Girls is a good one too. It's a little sexy.
All right. Okay. An activity that completely relaxes you.
Hands down, just going to the beach. I'm a barefoot girl, so I go to the beach and immediately lose my shoes, and I could just sit on the beach for hours. In the beach or anything where there's water, I could just sit there for hours and just be completely content. Yeah.
I can identify also all the white noise of the ocean, right? If it's the ocean that you're at.
Yeah.
What movie could you watch over and over and over and never tire of it?
Oh my goodness. There's so many because I'm just a movie nut, but the one that comes to mind is The Family Stone. Have you ever seen it? Nope. You have to tell me. It's like a Christmas movie, but it's got so many great stars, and it's just a good movie. Just a good movie. Sarah Jessica Parker.
I think I might know what it is.
Yeah.
I'll go check it out though. Most used tool in your vestibular toolbox. Oh, I like that one.
Honestly, it has been my weighted blanket. Yes,
Oh,
love it. I first used one right after um, I stayed with a friend or something. I don't even know why. And I'm like, what is with this heavy blanket? But it was just a size just enough to go over your thighs, but I fell in love with it. My mother gave me one for Christmas and I love it. It just feels like a big hug. I just love it.
does it help your symptoms?
Yes, it does. It actually, I have, I have discomfort in my thighs on a daily basis, and it never it started after my symptoms. It has something to do with me wanting to regulate my balance. So my magnesium helps that, but it really eases the thigh discomfort. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Learn something new every day. Okay, so last question. What are you extremely grateful for right now?
Oh gosh. I'm extremely grateful for my family and being able to have the freedom to live like we do. And then it's working. I should say I owe that to the universe because the universe has, allowed that and made space for that. So I'm grateful for a lot, and every day is different. But so yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me interview you. I am so grateful for having had this opportunity, and I'm just so grateful that you're in my life.
Aw, thank you, Sarah. Sarah, thank you so much for interviewing me today. I didn't expect all those emotions to come up to surface. Well, then again, that is me. That's what this is all about, seeing the real stuff. If you would like to reach out to me, please find my contact information in the show notes. If you would like to reach out to Sarah, please email me and I will connect you with her. If you know anyone with an inspiring vestibular story, I would love to hear it. Also, our community at Meniere's Muse would love to hear it. If you would like more information on vestibular disorders, please visit the Vestibular Disorders Association website at www.vestibular.org. Now, if you could do one more thing for me in celebration of our 1-year anniversary, please share this podcast with another vestibular warrior on your social media, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You just never know who may need to hear this message. Thanks again for being here, warriors. And don't forget, your story may help and inspire someone living with a vestibular disorder. The power of connection is huge. I'll see you next week, warriors.